Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 15 of This Korean Life. Today's podcast is brought to you by We Hope. This Saturday night, October 19th, snatch your people up, grab your kids who are over 19, grab your wives and your husbands, because it's We Hope's biggest fundraiser for the year. Proceeds go towards We Hope's programs, which serve the underprivileged youth in the Ulsan community, with a majority of the funds being raised going towards the orphanage Christmas party. This is the 8th year of the Polka Run, and We Hope hopes to see you out this Saturday, October 19th. If you'd like to participate, you can contact We Hope through Facebook at We Hope Korea or on Instagram at We Hope Korea. If you'd like to make a donation, please visit the We Hope website at www.wehopekorea.org. This podcast is also brought to you by ESL Hacker, the best new ESL website for all of your ESL resource needs. ESL Hacker is dedicated to making creative classroom content. ESL Hacker provides classroom materials to help you conduct a more exciting, dynamic, and engaging class. Do you need a lesson plan on the fly? Do you want to make next Friday's class very memorable? Check out the market on the webpage, eslhacker.com, for some options. You can check them out on Instagram or at Facebook at ESL Hacker. Today's episode features the one and only Nicole Sharkey. She was a teacher here in Ulsan a few years back. She's a young go-getter with a passion for travel, adventure, her puppy, and life in general. Nicole's optimism is infectious, and coupled with her hard work, it has helped her explore several foreign countries in various fields. This talk was great, but we had slight audio trouble, so it's a bit on the robotic side. We tried to remedy this for over a month, hence the delay in release, but we couldn't fix it. It's still totally listenable. Enjoy, everybody.
You are now tuned into This Korean Life with your hosts, Brian and Nate.
And welcome, Nicole Sharkey, to This Korean Life. You were just talking about Seoul, how you would never live there. Is it that Ulsan is so great, or that Seoul is so terrible?
Well, I mean, I'm a little biased because I started my Korean adventure in Ulsan, and I actually wanted to be in Seoul. When I applied to come, I was like, I want to be in Seoul. I have friends in Seoul. It's going to be great. But then I got Ulsan, and I was like, well, I mean, 1.1 million people, that's quite enough. I think it'll be fine. But then, like, the more time that I spent here and the more that I visited Seoul, I was like, oh, Seoul is just like being in America. Like, there's no challenge. It's not hard. You meet other Americans or you meet other people from other nationalities. It's liberal. It's easy. It's...
No challenge. Yeah, it's nothing special about being there.
You can get anything in Seoul. You want Mediterranean food? There's a place for that. Like, everyone... You know, it's not difficult to find what you're looking for, and I think part of being abroad and part of being an expat is enjoying the challenge of being an actual expat and having to figure things out, and so that's why I stayed in Ulsan as long as I did.
I agree with that to some degree, but you got to say not everyone lives in Itaewon or HBC or these places, so the people who are on the outskirts or the fringes of Seoul, I mean, could be a lot more challenging for some of them, but I agree in the most part. Everything's a subway ride away to get anything that you need.
That's what kept it very interesting for me, and that constant challenge. And when you do discover something new or something new comes, I mean, we have Costco. We're pretty spoiled now. We have Costco. I was
going to say, like, when you came, it was already a dream here. 10 years before that was the challenge. You had cheese.
I've heard the stories. Al at SEMA has told me, like, oh, you know, like 20 years ago, the whole place, like Samsung didn't exist. It's just rice fields.
There was no that's the part that still it's so hard for me to understand. When my wife tells me when she was young, like Hyundai department store was a pig farm, and then even our friend Eric, he said, "Man, I remember when I first came here, they were just clearing the land to build Lotte department store." Like you can't.
But
imagine
even right here where we're sitting before the World Cup was rice paddies.
Yeah.
That's true, right?
And that was only 2002, so Yeah, not that long ago.
Wild.
But I think that's what makes Ulsan so interesting as well, is that it's constantly changing. And I've been gone for 2 years now, and I come back and I couldn't find the Daiso in Samsung, you guys.
Oh, it's gone.
It moved. It's like across from the bus terminal now, and
everything moves every 6 months.
I was like, oh God, you guys, how am I gonna go? I was like, there's no way they went out of business because they were like the busiest Daiso in the city, but it's gone.
No doubt.
Are you? I believe you're from Pittsburgh. Is that correct?
That's right. Yeah.
Are you a Pens fan?
Of course I am.
Get
Don't
out.
be ridiculous.
No, okay.
I would never.
Pardon my ignorance. How big is Pittsburgh? I mean, I'm from a town of, well, not Thunder Bay is about 100,000, and where I spent the last little while before I came over in Winnipeg, outside of there was probably like 4,000.
He killed one of
So
Canada's
1.1
national
million.
heroes. Don't forget about it.
1.1 million is huge for me. But how big is Pittsburgh? Just for comparison.
In the metropolitan area, Pittsburgh is probably 600,000. So it's like, I've always lived in cities, so it's not like it was a huge culture shock to me.
Right.
But it's definitely bigger than Pittsburgh. But it has the same vibe, whereas it's small enough that no matter where you go, you're going to run into somebody you know. There's no hiding in Ulsan, in my opinion. I don't think you can hide anywhere.
Which is strange. Eh?
Not if you're a social megastar like you.
Right?
I just hide out in Oakdong for weeks on end and nobody sees me.
Social megastar. She's signing autographs at the department store.
Not only at Thursday party.
Yeah. Is that the go-to stuff?
That's home.
Yeah. Thursday. That's which makes me laugh. That's the only place in Korea that's ever like not let me in.
Really?
For having, or I mean, we had to use our We Hope cards to let us get in. But he's like, "Excuse me, sir, do you have ID?" Like, I got a bald spot and pictures of my kids. Does that count? No, really, I need your ID. I'm like, dude, I'm 34.
Yeah.
Or last year I was 33. Like,
That's because Sharkey was bringing in the underage high school.
I know, they just started that too. Like when I first got here, I never showed an ID. Now, it's funny, it's 2 years later, I walked up and I was like, oh, they were like, ID, and I was like, oh, I know Jen, and they were like, yeah, we know, just let us stamp your hand. And I was like, oh, great, glad we're still on the same page.
I said Jin too. They weren't having any of it. That's the Sharky charm.
When did you come here?
I got here in 2014.
So Thursday party must have just opened around then also.
Maybe,
I don't remember how
yeah.
long, I mean.
Is it the
It
Long
used to be
Island
Gorilla, right?
Yeah, it used to. Were you here for Gorilla Bar?
No.
That was
It must have opened right around that time when you came, so.
it was the same vibe. Or actually, Thursday party has more music, more kind of club.
It's changed a lot though, even in the last 2 years. Like I remember when I used to come, there was a mix of ages. Like I would meet people younger and older than me. But now,
You
like
said a mix of Asians.
no
Okay.
ages.
Gotcha.
All like there was a whole vibe of like, you know, some people were younger, some people were older, and it was great. But now, like I go and everyone's like in their early 20s, like
it's
just
really
out of
out
high
there.
school. Like
Really?
yeah, it's changed a lot. Like of course the foreigners are much older because we don't have a whole lot of spaces in Ulsan that we can feel comfortable. Yeah. Oh yeah.
In the dark.
I
corner.
have kicked out one too many people at Thursday party.
Yeah.
I was like, leave her alone. She is too drunk. Do not touch her. Go home.
Nice. What was the original draw to Thursday party? Is it the $3 Long Island ruin your weekend iced teas?
You know, like fun fact, I can't drink those anymore because they're so acidic coming back up when you throw up. So now I had to switch. I can't drink them anymore. I'm not that young. I can't do it.
When we do the 12 bars of Christmas, that's always one stop, and when someone orders that, it's a punch it's an acidic punch in the throat. You burp those all night. You're like, oh
It's
no,
horrible, and I was just like, I can't keep doing this.
I can
to
feel it
myself.
eroding the inside of my belly. Oh god. Anyways, back on track here. What you left home? What was the reason for leaving? You seem pretty comfortable in Pittsburgh. What was your reason for leaving home?
Yeah, I think at the time, like I got my undergrad in political science and geography, and I did want to work in like an international sector of some sort.
Yep.
So for me, it was just getting some international experience and kind of having a chance to work abroad, gain some, cross-cultural communication skills, that kind of stuff. I really had only planned to be here for a year and apply to grad school.
Everyone does, yeah.
Right? That's what everyone says. They come to
Your hockey
Epic.
career took off?
Yeah. 2 years later when I was like, oh yeah, I should probably do that.
Did you play hockey at home as well?
Yeah, I started playing hockey when I was about 12.
Nice.
My brother's been playing since he was 6.
Yeah.
I got in a little bit later.
Cool.
But my dad's 60. He's about to be 60, and he plays 3 times a week still.
Yeah.
So it's pretty much like a family thing.
Yeah. So you're pretty happy when you came here and heard the Pirates have Pirates.
Well,
have
I studied abroad in England, and I helped start the hockey team there.
No way.
And they go to nationals now, and I'm so proud.
Nice. That's awesome.
So it turned out really good. So
You helped start a women's team or a men's team?
co-ed. It's a co-ed team. It's a college team.
Nice.
It's co-ed still. They play at a lower division. I mean, it's England. They don't have that much representation in the ice hockey world, but
No doubt. That's awesome. Did you were studying in England?
yeah, I did a year abroad.
Oh, through your it's a sister
Through my university, like a matriculated year. Instead of like a study abroad year where you're with everyone in your university and it's kind of like cliquey and tight knit, I decided to do an exchange year where I was actually a matriculated student. And
Awesome.
I lived with British students, and some of them came to visit me. That's how tight our hockey team was.
Awesome.
Here in Korea, so it was pretty fun.
That's awesome. That's great.
Back to your coming over here, I'm just curious. How did you get... Yeah, we're jumping all over. How did you... I'm trying to think of how I ended up here. But Epic didn't exist when I came, so how did you know about it, or how did you apply, or how did you find Korea on the map?
So it actually relates back to England really well, because I took up rugby in England as something fun to do that was new to me. And there was a Canadian girl on my rugby team who just out of college, she was recruited by like Corvia to go straight, or like Korean Horizons. I forget which one of them is Canadian, but they like sent her over here, and she ended up in Seoul. And we were talking one day, and she was like, "What are you doing?" And I was like, I'm job searching. Like, I'm starting my life out here.
Come to Korea.
I was like, I want to be in DC, but I'm not having any luck with the job market. And she was like, "Girl, you love travel. You love languages. Like, you adapt really easily. Why aren't you doing this?" And I was like, that is a very valid point. So I sat down at the table and I told my parents, "Hi, I'm going to move to Korea." And they were like, "What?" But it's like, I mean, I kind of set them up. It hasn't been my first time living abroad. And so they were like kind of used to saying goodbye at this point.
Yeah.
So, and I was like, but just be a year, as everyone says.
I'm going on tour.
But I don't think anybody knows what it's like to plan for 5 years, or, if I was going to Italy or France or a Western country where I knew, or Mexico, I think you could possibly plan for 3 or 4 or 5 years if you knew. But the contract is a 1-year teaching contract. Who's planning outside of that? I'll see how it goes. I think most people would say, I'll see how it goes, and if it's good, I'll stay. If it's not, I'll move on. But yeah, definitely most are only here for a year at the beginning.
Now that you've experienced, living in Korea for what, you were here 2 years?
3 years.
You were here for 3 years. You've gone back home. You were in Thailand, which we'll talk about. Can you, after you finish your master's back in America, can you see yourself settling down in America, or now that you've kind of been bit by the international working bug, I guess? Can you do you see
Yellow
yourself?
fever.
Yeah. I think
Sharky's got the fever. What's that song?
You just made that up, man.
No. Boontang Boys? Remember on YouTube they used to have those? Okay, I'm gonna link it when we post this one. I think they're called the Boontang Boys, and they used to have 2 or 3 songs, and one of them was about a military guy leaving, and they say, "Johnny's got the fever." Okay, I'll post them for you after.
oh my gosh.
Follow
We're both here like,
Sharky's
okay, sure, Nate, go for it.
Anyways.
I think that's a really hard question, because when I was younger, like, I didn't really want to set down roots anywhere. I never wanted to buy a house. I was like, I couldn't even see myself staying in one place for too long. I get really antsy after a couple of years. But like, as I'm getting a little bit older, and I'm sure we'll talk about my dog, but my dog is a big part of my decision.
You like dogs?
They're all right, I guess. She's a huge part of my future decisions now, and where I'm going to end up. So
not Korea?
For
fear of it getting cooked.
In the last couple of years, man, it's gotten way bad here. There's like all those muzzle laws and all kinds of stuff because some random person got bit and sold.
Right. Oh, yeah.
Like, it's horrible. I like read these horror stories of poor people who have large dogs like here. I don't know how they do it because.
But if I remember, your dog is the size of my foot.
Oh yeah, she's tiny.
So you don't have to worry about anything.
I think you're right. She does not have to do that. She's very good at public transportation. She's very portable. So
cool.
But I think now I'm thinking a lot more long term, like where I want to end up. I think like field, like I could see myself doing field work, but it's really hard because I want to work in like international development being like on the ground and really in the thick of things. And, you know, a lot of countries that need that kind of international development work, they're not necessarily pet friendly places. So for me, I think now I'm thinking more setting down roots in DC and getting a job that allows me to be abroad for 2 to 3 months a year.
Cool.
And kind of going and overseeing projects and coming back, so that way, you know, I don't have to kind of subject my dog to like really bad situations, but also like, you know, I can set up roots somewhere and kind of start a family, that kind of thing.
What is the market like in DC for those kind of positions?
It's horrible. I like came here and I was like, I'm not going to talk about how horrible it is to get a job, but like, I got rejected by like 3 jobs yesterday and was like, oh my God, what am I going to do?
This podcast is going to launch your career.
I hope so, because I have like $19 US in my bank account right now, and I have to pay like $1,300 in rent every month.
Oh, no.
So I'm like sitting here like a little bit shitting my pants, like what am I going to do?
Oh, you still have your place
I do, yeah. I sublet this summer because my landlady is fantastic, and she doesn't charge me dog rent, which is insane in DC. Like, they wanted to charge you like an extra $100 a month just to have a pet.
Wow.
It's out of control. And you're already paying like, some of my friends are paying $1,600, $1,700 for a studio apartment.
That's stricter than North Korea.
It's horrible.
Oh, that's brutal.
So I have a question then regarding your dog.
Yeah.
If in the future, when your dog passes, would you
easy? Come on, we're not.
No, but I think there's a lot of people who are in these predicaments and situations, delay getting another, because I know most people will get another dog right away. Would you delay that until you got settled somewhere else if you wanted to pursue that and then get another dog? Or would you get a new one right away and then keep going the way you've been? Or how does that play into your decisions?
This is my first ever pet, and I don't think I can replace her. Like, so her start was a little bit rough. She had parvo when I got her.
She had what?
And parvo.
What's that?
It's like
Sounds
like an autoimmune disease that like right? It's parvovirus. So most puppies get like vaccinated for it, but she had it beforehand because she came from the shelter. And so it's very expensive to treat, and her survival rate was like at 5% at one point.
Yeah, no way. I remember that. Yeah.
So it was really hard on me at the beginning.
Thursday Party had a spike in sales that month too.
As if I like did anything but go from work to the hospital back to my house for like 2 whole months that she was like in intensive care. And I think through that, like, the bond was really tight, and it was like really hard to go through, and I don't know that I would do it again. Hopefully she lives a wonderful long life. She's 3 years old now, and she's fantastic.
Oh God, yeah.
So hopefully I have many more years with her.
Nice.
But I put in a lot of time and effort with her as well. I think a lot of people, my cousin is watching her now. My parents had her for a few months while I was traveling, and then my cousin has her now for this week, and she's like, she is such a good dog. Like, she's so low maintenance and so easy. And I was like, yeah, that's because I put in all the work at the beginning.
No doubt.
So now, like, she is really good at traveling. Like, she's great on the plane. She's wonderful. She'll, like, if we have she has so many carrier bags because I don't drive. I've never had a driver's license. Yeah. So I rely on public transportation like Uber in the States, and she'll jump right in the bag. She's ready to go. Like, she's super portable and easy. So I think in the future, you know, if there is the opportunity to travel more or live abroad, I think she would really adapt well. Nice. Because I've raised her that way. But I don't know that I could do it with another dog. It would take time.
When you bring your dog on a plane, does your dog sit with you? Or do you have to check it out? I don't know. Depends
on the size. Yeah, it depends on the size. Like, she's small enough that she was able to ride. She's able to ride in the plane.
Because we had our friend who lived here before, and he sent 2 dogs back to Canada. Like, I think before, or maybe to meet his family, or someone picked it up. But it was like thousands of dollars.
Yeah, it's
they put
really
it
expensive.
in like a dog hotel, and they were feeding it like golden biscuits or something. And it was really expensive.
I had a funny incident when I just got back from Canada yesterday. I had a funny incident there when I met my cousin. I was actually at her wedding, and I met her in the airport in Toronto by chance. What are the chances that we were on the same flight, and she was sitting right next to my wife of all the flights out of Toronto? We're going to her wedding, and she was on the same flight, same seats. And she had a dog like this, where it's just in a little carrier or whatever. Mm-hmm. Do you know what a puppuccino is?
Yeah, like at Starbucks.
Do you know that?
A puppuccino?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, it's basically like whipped cream in a little cup, and they serve it usually for free. Most places, Starbucks will give it for free.
No, that's not a breed of dog.
No, a
No,
puppuccino
it's
is
like
like
a
a
drink.
dog's frappuccino.
Yeah.
I'm not a coffee guy, but she said, "Oh, I was
Oh,
just
I
having
thought
my
that was a
dog
dog
a
that
puppuccino."
fit in a cappuccino cup. I gotcha. I didn't know that. Listen, I was
Micro dogs.
When you said puppuccino, the first thought was like, oh, it's a Starbucks. And then I'm like, oh no, then it's a breed of dog, and then now I'm confused. It's a drink for a dog.
Yeah, it's like
whipped cream.
basically it's just whipped cream, like
Yeah.
in a little. They put it in like a little Dixie cup for the dog, and I mean, in Washington D.C., that is like the dog capital of America.
Do you have to pay for it?
No, most Starbucks will give it to you for free.
Oh,
if you order
really?
a drink, they'll just include it because it.
She told me her dog was having a puppuccino. I didn't know what it was until you just said that. She said something about cream, but I was like, a dog just eats a cup full of cream? Anyways, we ended up having lunch in the Toronto airport and grabbing a drink and catching up. I haven't seen her for probably 10 years. And the dog started yelping out of the little carrier or whatever.
Yeah.
So she opened a can of whatever. To me, it looked like tuna, but
Yeah.
it was probably dog food or whatever. Jammed it in there, and the dog's dancing around in there. And then after that was done, she popped him a few gravels, and I was like, "Oh my god, this dog's gonna be hammered on the." I mean, puppuccinos, can of tuna, gravel. He's gonna be either puking or dying or. Anyways, the dog was quiet all the way to Thunder Bay. I mean, we were between getting on boarding and landing, in probably over 2 hours. The dog didn't say a word the whole time. So.
Huh. That's wild.
I just thought maybe that puppuccino works or something. The gravel was extra strong. I don't know.
I never realized the bond between dog and owner or whatever. I used to criticize. We had Jeff, who was on the podcast before. He was so, bro, I got 4 dogs, and he'd tell me stories like it's his, like it's like there's
kids.
like it's
They're
like
his
family.
kids. That's
almost.
what they are.
Yeah.
And I never understood it. Because growing up, we always asked my dad, "Dad, can we have a dog?" No. We ended up settling on a cat, which it's a cat. It's an animal runs around your house. Our whole life, Dad, can we have a dog? Can we have a dog? No, barbecue that thing. No big animals in my house. Blah blah. Listen, and he, as soon as I left for Korea, he gets Saint Bernard.
Oh wow, the like big ones,
Huge.
like
It's a horse.
Beethoven
Yeah.
type dog.
It's
That's what my parents had.
Beethoven.
Oh my
yeah.
God.
It's a horse.
We saw one of those in London, and
It
my
could
girls
swallow
thought there
my-
was a bear or a dinosaur. Right, like they've only been in Korea; they haven't traveled
Right.
much. And we saw 2 or 3 of them as soon as we landed at Hamilton and my sister's. And we saw the first morning we went for a walk because they weren't sleeping, and we saw this big dinosaur of a dog, and they were like, "Bear, dinosaur!" And I was like, "Yeah, that's huge.
They're
It's as
massive.
big as the cars here."
Comparatively, yeah.
The Matees.
So, I mean, I was basically replaced with Beethoven. My dad replaced me. I went to Korea. He gets the biggest dog in the world. But when I talk to him now, and I mean, even when we were in Canada, I was like, "Oh, I think there's gonna be thunderstorms later. I gotta let Harley in. Oh, look at this big baby scared of the." And he talks to it like a little child. I'm like, "Dad, you hated dogs growing up," and it kind of and it grows on him, man. And even now. I'm asking him, why don't you go out west, go out east for a vacation? He's like, who's going to take care of the dog? Like, what do you mean who's going to take care of the dog? Just, dude, take it with you. Like, oh, no, we don't want to stress the dog out. And kind of his life now is like revolving around the dog. And I would have never, unless he kind of fell into that, I never would have believed that people can get so attached to an animal.
Isn't that wild?
But I've seen and I believe you can, especially the labs and retrievers and stuff, like the hunting dogs and the friendly,
Yeah.
I grew up in the countryside, and those things are very popular. And I could totally imagine getting attached. The thing I never wanted was my life to revolve around the dog, whether it be travel or... I've seen so many people's dogs get sick and need treatments and hip replacements, and they cost thousands and thousands of dollars. And if you're not prepared for that, I mean, that's a game changer. Your dog needs a hip. You've had him for 8, 9, 10 years.
Well, you might during this broadcast here, you might see my neighbor Bruce. He's a Canadian guy. Shout out to Bruce. Where are you? Where are you?
He walks a dinosaur.
He
across the
walks-
parking lot
Oh,
there.
wow.
He walks a community dinosaur around here. What is it? A black lab?
Looks like it.
But he said he has like special savings account because
Yeah.
he knows the hips go bad when the dog's 12, and his dog had cancer. And
Yeah.
there's another.
How much would you be willing to spend on? Is it unlimited or?
Yeah, I think
Is
it
there a
depends
line?
on the situation. Like, it would definitely be I mean, I've already spent a lot of money on my dog. She was very sick. Thank God it happened in Korea. Jeez, like in America, that kind of treatment would have cost like my college tuition, you know?
Sell a liver.
Thank God she was here. Like she got the best treatment, and I was like, it costs how much? What?
Yeah.
I mean, my friends were like, what? You paid what? But I'm sitting here like, I know how much that cost.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like I've got a good deal. But I think it would just really depend on like what exactly was the problem. Like I've talked to my parents about it as well because they're quite attached to her now. That is their grandchild. Like it's the only one they got right now. So my dad took her to the spa on Saturday. Like, I mean,
a dog spa?
Yeah.
Oh,
she got her little facial and massage and a haircut.
Nice. That's
he
awesome.
sent me pictures. He was like, look at your princess. I was like,
That's hilarious.
I know. And he told me not to get a dog. We never had pets either. But I think I talked to my parents about it, like what we would do in this situation, because at this point, I'm a student. Like I would need help. I couldn't do this, but I don't even have health insurance for myself. Like, hi, America, it sucks. So it's like, I was like, what would we do? You know, and I think if it were something like a surgery that she needed or something that would elongate her life very long, great. But if it's something like cancer where like, if you're paying all this money for chemo and it's going to elongate her life like 1 year, I don't think like I could justify that kind of money. And I say that now, like, because my dog is healthy and everything's wonderful. But she is like my kid. Like I put all of my love and attention into taking care of her and raising her, and it's only ever been me and her. Like I lived alone here, I live alone in DC, and she's my like lifelong companion so far. So I think it's hard to say, but I definitely think that you have to decide what's the cutoff, because otherwise those vets will like manipulate you.
Absolutely,
because there is an emotional attachment, and like
it's a bit, they gotta run a business,
right? Exactly. And so like you want to do everything possible to help your pet, but
you don't want to sewer your own life as well,
right? Exactly.
And that's even in Korea. Last year they passed the dying with dignity law, and since then was it 60,000? Yeah, maybe 60,000 people have chosen, you know what? I don't want to, the same thing. I don't want to continue treatment and being sick, whether it's use chemo for an example, I don't want to slowly wither away and elongate my life 6 months and have to sell my house and sewer my family for the rest of their lives. Just let me go, So that's kind of catching on and popular here, and that was something I brought up in my classes actually last week, the death with dignity. And do you see Korea in the future doing the assisted suicide? Yeah. And people are like, oh, that's wrong to do it. But I thought, man, if assisted suicide was available here, don't you think the suicide rate would drop? Like the actual suicide rate would drop. Don't you think now, if someone decides to jump or do whatever, it's kind of like a rebellious act, or like, but if that's an option, if like, you know what, I could check out tomorrow if I want. If you have that option and it's something that's talked about, don't you think people would, maybe the actual suicide rate would drop, and maybe it's only old people or terminal people?
I thought a lot of the suicide rate here is young people. It's one of the highest countries in the world for young people committing suicide, but I don't think that option would be available for young people. I mean, I usually thought that was available for elderly people.
It should be available for everyone, but I mean, I assume it's not like a drive-through. You don't walk in and be like, all right, give me number 2. It's and not funny to laugh about, but I'm sure you sit down and there's a counselor or something there you should talk to first.
Well, is there not something at home now? And it's called pre-planning your death or something. And it's called
Save $8 million for your casket.
I've seen commercials and advertisements on, talk about it before you get to the stage where dad's sick and two siblings think this, one thinks this, one thinks that. And they said sit down before they lose their mental capacity and plan it out and organize it so that you know exactly how it's going to play out.
I want the car.
If you
want the car, I want the house.
All you have to do is go through the checklist. You don't have to fight and argue. It's already decided. It's already. And some people say, well, that's kind of, awkward to talk about ahead. But
like morbid.
But the other option could be way worse, where the whole family ends up getting in a royal rumble over it.
Yeah.
So I thought that was a very common thing a couple of years ago. It was becoming trendy at home to discuss these things with your family and, like you say, with your dog and your parents and all of them. I think it's important. Otherwise, where do you decide? My brother wants to spend a million more, I'm like, well, he's going to die in 3 months anyways. So where do you draw the line, and who gets the say? Yeah. Mom wants this, my brother wants this, my sister wants this, I want that. So,
but that's a crazy thing. Listen to this story. I got a friend at home. She was walking her dog, tripped, bumped her head, thought nothing of it, went home. She said 2 days later, passed out, fell into a coma. She was in a coma for 2 weeks, and this is the difference between Canada and America. In Canada, I mean, it was totally free. Like, there was no cost to keep her alive or have her on the breathing machine. But the doctors were telling her parents, like, she's probably not going to make it. She's doing okay now. She's probably not going to make it. And this is 3 or 4 days in. Like, there's brain activity's low. After a week, they're like, yeah, you should probably consider. But she woke up, I think it was 2 or 3 weeks into it. And I wonder, I mean, if you don't have insurance, or people in Korea who don't have the extra insurance, how long do you wait? How long, I don't know. It's such a weird topic to bring up. But
I mean, and I think
it's hard to,
when you travel a lot, and I don't know, maybe it's just because I'm close with my parents. Like, they know exactly what I want. Like, they know, like, if anything happens to me when I'm abroad, like, I've lived a good life. I've lived a hella full life for being 28 years old. Like, whatever I'm doing, like,
spring chicken.
I know, right? Like, I'm happy. I'm good. Like, I chose to travel. I chose to do this. Yeah. So if anything happens, like, it's going to happen. And for them not to be upset about the situation, or Absolutely. They know, like, what I want.
I'm not that much older than 28, and I think I've also lived a full life, and I've expressed the same kind of views to my parents. But it's different now with a wife and kids. I don't want to be a vegetative state for 10 years. Just pull the plug. That's it. And let's move on. I don't want my kids to have to endure that. My wife, they say, that's so selfish. How can you think about it? Like, if there's 1% chance you wake up and get to play with your daughters again, we want to take that chance.
Yeah, but I'm not going to pay $8 million and let them live in a box.
But so this is the thing. Like, everyone knows I don't want to, once I'm at that stage, just let me go. But I don't think my daughters would probably agree with that, or probably my wife. So, yeah, once married
I don't know, man. I think the wife
my wife would trip over the cord. Yeah. But once married with kids, it kind of changes the dynamic. When I was young and invincible like you, I was the same thing. Just, burn me, spread me over the ocean there. I'll be traveling forever and no problem.
But throw me in the Tewa.
Now it's, I know, the Tewa, but now it's a little bit different. Anyways, you recently, you've only been here a week, and you come in from Thailand where you were doing an internship. Can you tell me again, I missed it, what you told me you were doing your master's in, and how you ended up in Thailand?
Yeah, no worries.
How was it?
So I am getting my master's in security policy studies at the George Washington University. Basically what that means is kind of like international security stuff. Most of my cohort, they want to be at the Department of Defense, State Department. They're very military focused. So I kind of don't know how I ended up there, because I am the complete opposite. Like, everyone in my class is like, okay, so if we want to solve the problem, like, let's just bomb them. It'll be great. And I'm over here like, okay. But
I met people from that country. They're actually nice.
What if we didn't? Like, can you imagine? And they're like, oh, everyone rolls their eyes like, oh God, it's her again. Like, peace studies over here. But honestly, like, I'm so glad that my voice is in the room, because, like, I'm really there for the human security aspect, which is just focusing on less of the country and more of the individual, the community, the grassroots organizing. So while I am definitely,
which is often overlooked.
Yeah, right? I'm an anomaly at my school, but I do think that, like, I bring a lot to the conversation, and I do think that I challenge the views of my classmates, because for them, like, the easy decision is just, let's go to war, like, let's end it, or, we're stronger. So obviously when you think of the security dilemma of, like, who's stronger and what is each country going to do, like, they're like, oh, we're the United States, we're going to win. And, like, that's great and wonderful, but, like, what if we're not?
But it's also,
things are changing.
How about you go there for a week and see and talk to the people, and you go, holy shit, I don't want to bomb here anymore.
And that's the thing.
People are great.
Tell them to push the button on a drone strike.
So many of my classmates are exactly what you're saying. Like, they haven't been abroad, really. They've done a semester abroad. They've, they're 21, just out of undergrad. And, like, that's fine. I mean, that happens. Yeah. Like, because that's kind of the narrative that we're selling to children these days is like, go to college, go straight to grad school, get a job, then you start your career at 24.
I followed that too. And man, I was pretty ignorant coming here.
Like, and like, it's not that I think my classmates are stupid or, I just think like their perspective is really narrow.
Yeah, green.
And they they want to be the ones making international security policy. They're going to be the next people at the DoD making these decisions for us. But they've never been abroad or, been immersed in a culture before. So for me coming into it, I really expected to meet a lot more people like me. And I'm like, oh gosh, like you guys have, like, what do you mean you're an expert in Asia, but you've never been to Asia?
Well, I find that's very common.
Read the book
at home. Yeah, lots of it is read the book, and I had my degree, and you see it here with teaching, right?
Yeah.
I mean, guys who come over with education degrees or PhDs or masters, but Jeffy has his high school degree and he's been teaching for 35 years here. I probably take him over.
Yeah.
The qualified guy anytime. He's evolved with the country over 35 years.
The Koreans have a great proverb that would describe your classmates. Have you heard umuran geguri?
No.
Like a frog in a well.
Oh
they only it sums up so many good situations there, but it's just a frog in a well. That's all he knows is where he's is where he's grown up or lived. They've never been outside. They don't. It's kind of ignorance, right?
It is, and so like when I had the opportunity, like at orientation last year around this time, I'm speaking at orientation on Friday, so I know it's about this time. They said the International Education Advisor came up and he said we have a Freeman Foundation Fellowship for students to study in Asia or have an internship in Asia, and that happened to be my area of interest. So I literally like waltzed right up to him afterwards, and I was like, "Hello, I would like to go to South Korea." And he was like, "Oh, how come?" And I said, "Well, I just moved back from there. I lived there for 3 years and I miss it a lot. I miss my friends. I miss my life. It's been really hard coming home and like not having that support system anymore and like ultimately like feeling really isolated and alone with all of my experiences." And so he was like, "Okay, well, let's make an appointment and talk about it." So I showed up and he was like, "So let's unpack this a little bit. Like, do you feel like you have unfinished business in South Korea?" And the more that I thought about it, I was like,
twiddling your fingers like this. Yes.
I was like, well,
I left that shot of tequila on the bar at Thursday party.
I do, and I was like, God, I
have an unpaid tab.
And, I really wanted to hike a couple more mountains that I didn't make, but ultimately, like career-wise, I was like, you know what, like. Korea is easy. Korea is the easy choice. I already speak Korean. I wouldn't say I'm fluent, but I'm pretty good. I get by. It's comfortable. It's a comfortable language for me.
Enough.
Right. And, I already have friends here. I already know what food I like. Everything just felt, I was like, it's going to be easy and I'm not going to be challenged. And how is this driving my career goals? How is this fixing, my resume? How is this making me a better person? And so we talked more in depth about what I wanted out of this internship. And for me, I wanted something where I could be in the field, like on the ground. I didn't want to be in an office. I was like, if I wanted an internship in the office, I would just go and stay in DC for the summer and get an internship working in an office, So if I'm going to go to Asia, I'm really going to commit to it. So I found the most obscure organization that I possibly could. I worked this summer for the Karen Women Organization, and the Karen Women are
what's it called?
Karen Women Organization.
How do you spell that?
Like Karen. Karren.
Yeah, put something over that E, the way she does it.
Yeah, the Karen, which is funny because when you tell people, oh, I work with the Karen, they're like, oh, Korean? And I'm like, well, I've worked with them too, but no. So I worked for the Karen Women Organization, and what they are is they are an all-women run community-based refugee organization. And so they are about 33 to 35 years old at this point, and they are thriving. Basically, they offer social services to women and children that are vulnerable in the refugee camps, and they have also expanded into Karen State, which is Burma.
Okay.
Myanmar, Burma, whichever your country prefers. But so I knew a lot. I really prepared myself for this internship because I spent all last year doing a lot of research on Myanmar and figuring out, I knew about the Rohingya and everything like that. But, nothing could prepare you for, being smack dab in the middle of the jungle in Thailand.
Yeah.
My town had one traffic light.
Where were you exactly?
I was in Mae Sariang. It is about 4 hours west of Chiang Mai.
Okay, so up north,
Yeah.
far north and way to the west.
Yeah, right. So you're like almost right on the border. I worked between there as well as Mesot, which is the most famous border town between Burma and Thailand. But along there are 7 refugee camps that specifically work with the Karen people. And there are people who have been in the refugee camps that have grown up their whole lives there.
Sure.
Because this is such an ongoing, like long-term, ethnic conflict.
Yeah.
And so I'm so grateful for the opportunity because not only did I work in an office of all women where I really felt empowered to like ask questions and I felt the work environment was incredible. And it's rare in DC and it's rare in my field, which is male dominated. So it was wonderful to be, you know, like here with a bunch of women who are being supportive of each other and really like working towards a common goal. And they empower other women in the community. They're really big on community leadership and building skills for women to be community leaders as well as leaders in the Myanmar peace process.
Awesome. Couple questions.
Yeah.
First, were you the only Western person there?
Yes.
Or is it, when you mentioned the office is full of women, is that mostly Thai women leading the way, or are there Burmese women there as well, or is it a mix of Western, other Asian women, or who is it?
So the women are all ex-refugees, or some of them are current refugees that have been able to come out of the camp and work on these projects. They go in between the different refugee camps as well as Karen State. And there's a few other states that they work in, particularly like mixed control with both Burmese and the KNU, which is the Karen National Union. They're both fighting for control of a lot of areas, so they work within these areas as well. And there is one other woman who's been working with them for 25 years. She's from Australia. Her name is Jane. She's the best. Shout out to Jane. She helped me the first 2 weeks so much, but then she ran away to Australia for her vacation, because she's like, well, you're here, you can take over, you'll be great. And I was like, oh God, I don't know what I'm doing. But it turned out wonderful. But beyond that, I was the only Westerner, the only native English speaker. And the thing about these community organizations is that, KWO, Karen Women, they are well funded, to be honest. They have a lot of great donors that they have built relationships with over the years.
Who are they funded by, do you know?
They're funded by a lot of places, like the European Union runs some projects. AFEDA in Australia gives them money, as well as TVC, the Border Consortium in Thailand, funds a lot of their projects. Handicap International, which has become Humanity and Inclusion. They rebranded recently.
Cool.
So all of these people are giving them lots of great access to funds, but all of the reports and all of the information that they're giving to the donors has to be in English. But their English level is not amazing. You know, it's getting harder and harder to get access to English teachers and people who, speak English fluently. And they don't have that kind of money to pay a foreign person to come in and do these reports for them. So that's a lot of the work that I did, was donor engagement and reaching out to donors and,
cool.
updating them on the situation and, putting out publications. I was in charge of social media, just trying to rebrand who they are and get their message out there.
People don't want to be donate. We find even too with We Hope. You want to follow up with, hey, we're here. We want a donation. You want to follow up with, look at the impact it's had.
Right. Here are the case studies. Yeah. And exactly. And they have so much of this information, but it's just so hard to get it out there in English.
So does your friend Jane, does she work there full time, or does she also volunteer?
She, Jane is a bit of a mystery, to be honest with you. I'm pretty sure she does work there, and she has lived in Mae Sarang full time for 25 years. And she started as an Australian Peace Corps volunteer. And so she was funded that way for many, many years. Right. And then she was funded on another grant. But I think KWO now pays her. But I think because she's lived in rural Thailand for so long, she's been able to really budget her money and save things up. So I think she's in a good place.
Good.
Now, are the refugees there, are they all Burmese or Myanmar refugees, or are there some Uyghurs from China, or are there other refugees as well, or is it just...
They're all Karen. And as far as the 7 refugee camps towards the northern part and up to the southern tip of Thailand, they're all Karen. And then there are 2 sites very far in the north that are Kareni, which are another ethnicity of Burma.
Wow. Unreal.
So what was your overall takeout from this experience? How you were there about 3 months? You said?
Yeah, about 2.5 months, 12 weeks.
I spent about 6 weeks in Burma, about 10 years ago now. Went into Yangon and up through, all the way up north, Mandalay, and all around up there, and it was just incredible, and it was like a time warp.
Yeah, I mean, it's untouched. It's very much untouched.
But now it's changed a lot the last 5 or 6 years. But I mean, still compared to most other countries, it's still
it is the least developed.
But now the trade embargoes aren't there anymore. But when I went, like, there wasn't a pair of blue jeans, there wasn't a Coca-Cola, there wasn't one hint of American anything, and the embargoes were such that any product China made, if it had even the yellow in the top of this bottle cap came from a flower in Burma, they couldn't trade it anywhere except for China.
Wow.
So nobody in the West would trade with the government from Myanmar because it was so corrupt, and the embargoes were so strict that they were just suffocating themselves because they had no trade partners. It was just them and China, basically, and Thailand. So it was an eye-opening in Bagan and I mean Mandalay. It was incredible, and now it's very much more open now. But when I went there, there was no bank machines, there was no ATMs, there was no way to get money. You traded, and the currency was chat. And I remember that we had to trade our money in Yangon and go north for 3 weeks, and there was no way to get money up there, so you had to bring what you needed. And we went and changed a few $100s, and we got like literally half a backpack, a big backpacking backpack full of money. And I was like, I feel like a drug lord. And as if these guys, we traded it under the stairs because the bank rate was, for $1 you got like 6 or 7, or no, sorry, I want to say 6,000 or 7,000 chat. And on the black market you get 150,000. So we had millions or billions of chat in our backpack, and I was like, did they just do this under the stairs? We traded it literally under a shop's front stairs, and we walked down the street, and everybody knows that all three of us have backpacks full of money. Do they just jump us now and take and go, haha, you guys are stupid? Or, anyways, it was an incredibly eye-opening experience. I felt like we scratched the serial number off a couple of the old Japanese trucks from the 40s and 50s.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's the number one mode of transportation. So I understand a lot has changed now in the last 5 years or so, but do you get any of those impressions, feelings? Do you get any stories out of them? Is there any way to communicate with the refugees, or do you not have a lot of contact with them, or what?
So I spent some time in one of the refugee camps. It's very difficult for foreigners to get in and out of the camps these days. Thailand is really cracking down on that. So I had to work with a separate NGO to get a pass to go into the camps and work there. But definitely, I think what I'm starting to figure out was understanding, like, they're trying, many of the Karen are trying to go back. But the problem is that their land has been seized by the government, or, there's actually like a really big thing happening called like Cocoa Land. And basically the Burmese government sold like a ton of land to China. And now they're creating like a huge Chinese only city near the border with Thailand. Jesus. And they're expecting 400,000 Chinese to move there. And like, I don't even know, like, it's insane because the Burmese government, they're not even, the construction people are Chinese, like the companies are Chinese, the imports are going to be Chinese. Wow.
But that's been like that for ages. I mean, the same as North Korea, right? I mean, China owns those places, and they used to come down from the north. When I was there, everything was China from the north just coming down, and now they even say, the Ghanaian guys that have been on, the Chinese are everywhere now. And they say all the gold miners in Ghana are Chinese. And they just bring them in by the hundreds of thousands to build the railway from, where was it, from Kenya to the coast, or, I mean, it's everywhere. They bring them in by the hundreds of thousands, put them in the Gisuksa, dormitories or whatever, and they build highways and railways and everything in weeks and months. Like, yeah, no problem. We'll bring half our country here and make a new country for you. So that part doesn't surprise me. That I've been aware of that for a long time, and the Chinese have been doing that for a long time. But
yeah, it's definitely getting to be more and more. I've noticed throughout not just Asia, but like Nate was saying, throughout Africa as well. The Belt and Road Initiative is really taking away and really strengthening China's hold over a lot of countries, especially in the development sector.
They have that long vision. Eh? The world will come back and we'll be the leaders once again. You remember? I don't know if I've mentioned it on here before. When we met the guy from Queenstown. Yeah. And he was talking. He was here for some Alps summit. Yeah. It's kind of funny that the Queenstown Alps and the Swiss Alps are lumped in with
Ulsan Alps.
With the Ulsan Alps, but
those ones you were climbing there a few weeks ago.
Oh my god!
Yeah, but he was saying that lots of the he found it so crazy that lots of Chinese were moving to New Zealand and marrying into the Maori tribes so they can get so they can get land. Mm-hmm. And it's not, again, they're not looking at like, how can my generation prosper? They're looking, 4 generations down.
But this is globalization, man. The world's a different place.
It's everywhere.
I was in Thunder Bay, Ontario, in the middle of the boondock. I mean, this is North Ontario. And this is nowhere near 8 hours from Winnipeg, 18 from Toronto. There's nothing close to here. We went to the wedding at the old Fort William, and the whole serving staff was Indian. The whole serving staff was Indian. Wait, how did you guys end up here? I mean, from India.
Oh, okay.
Indian. How did you guys end up in Thunder Bay? But I just left Sault Ste. Marie, which is another out there place. And I was at the airport, and it said, the guy who was sitting at a desk, it said Sault College, and he also looked Indian, so I went and talked to him. And he said, because I was asking him to inquire about our college to see if we can work out an exchange or something. And he said, yes, we're more than welcome. We'd love to welcome Korean students, and we have Indian students coming all the time. And he said, the government has a program now where they come and study for 2 years, and it works towards their green card or whatever. Mm-hmm. So they can apply for residency or citizenship twice as fast if they go through this college program in a small town, Ontario town. So... yeah, it was, it used to be uncommon, but now, man, like I think of Thunder Bay and all my friends who have left and stuff, and now the Indians and the Filipinos, and they're everywhere now. This is globalization, man. It's not nothing's untouchable anymore. You can get anywhere.
That's good.
So I love these lines. I love it. I think it's awesome. I was going to ask you though, with your political situation at home, I can guess your point of view already, but seeing the people and talking to the people, and I always can't believe when I see remember when the guy tried swimming across the river with his daughter and died?
Oh, with a daughter in his shirt?
Yeah, the daughter was in his shirt. And I just, those things, like, I worked in the refugee camps in Ghana with the Liberians, and I was in them in Togo and Benin. So I've also have some experience in those camps, and we were 15,000 from 13 or 14 countries, all kinds of political refugees, all kinds of refugees. And I heard horrible, horrible stories of being hung by a left foot and a right hand for a day, and tomorrow is the left hand and the right foot, and tortured. And I've heard so many crazy stories from the refugees. And to think that these guys walk thousands of miles because they want to do something bad to the Americans or the Americas, it just blows my mind that people can be so ignorant. Yeah. And when you see them, if their place was safe and good to go back, they'd go back tomorrow. But
dude, if you listen, it's the same thing. It's another case of umurangeguri. If you sit there and watch the same news broadcast every day, that shit's getting pumped in your head. It's the same as North Korea thinking that they're the global leaders in everything.
Yeah. But here's the same thing. They have the Yemenis in Jeju-do, and some of my women's classes think, we don't want them here. We don't. And they said they're rich. They flew to here. I said, but do you think this was their first choice to fly to Jeju-do, South Korea, where they don't speak the language, they don't know the religion, nothing?
Yeah.
Nobody would. It's the only place in a certain amount of countries where they're allowed to come and apply freely for refugee status. And you don't think they looked at the numbers that it's only like 2 refugees every 5 years, are granted citizenship here? So,
but too, I think maybe everyone's first thought when you think refugee, it's like poor, homeless, or whatever. But I mean, these are doctors and
it's everybody. It's everybody.
Yeah. No one's just because you're a dentist doesn't mean you're gonna avoid. Don't bomb the dental clinic.
But the thing is, when the doctors and lawyers and dentists become refugees, they also have the means to assimilate a lot easier in their new countries.
Absolutely.
Which is what I found in Ghana when the war broke out in the Ivory Coast. Mm-hmm. Lots of those guys were coming back over and heading back to Togo, Benin, but they'd stop, and if they could find a niche in Ghana, boom, they could start their own business, whatever they were traveling with some money or whatever. But when you're poor, and it's a whole other ballgame.
Absolutely.
But seeing the guys you saw in Thailand, and what is it like with your social network at home, or your students and the colleagues that you have at home? Can you understand their point of views? Are they similar to yours, or are they again that kind of green naive frog in the well kind of?
Yeah, I think being in DC, I'm very lucky because DC is very liberal and really kind of goes along with my kind of political views in terms of having compassion for people from other countries and, understanding the plight of nobody wants to, give up their entire life and move to a country where especially if they've got a job and they've got a business and they've...
Unless it's us coming to Korea.
Right, but it's not, it's a choice that we made.
Absolutely.
But I think when you have a country where, war is broken out and I think as a woman in America, it's getting a lot scarier to be there. And, I want to know that I have a place to go. I mean, look at Korea. Korea just legalized abortion 2 weeks ago. And in America, we're still fighting over whether a woman has a right to choose or whether, birth control is covered or, whether I get to decide my birthing plan or not,
Yeah.
And it's wild. And I would like to know that if something ever happened or I ever felt unsafe, I would have somewhere to go or I would have, I would be able to go to another place. And I think a lot of people don't think that way. They can't put the shoe on the other foot and be like, if something were to happen today,
where am I going?
Where would I go? Right.
Where's the fallout shelter? Huh?
Right, exactly. And so when people are so narrow-minded about immigrants coming and I wrote about Syrian refugees in the States, and I was published earlier this year for it, and I was really excited. It's my first publication.
Good for you.
But one of the stats in there is that 80% of people, 80% of Syrian refugees who come, they have access to job training, and they're opening their own businesses. They're helping the economy. They're not taking away people's jobs.
Right.
They're creating new ones.
It's our grandparents who came over
Sure.
Exactly.
to Canada, or even my friend's parents from Vietnam. Mm-hmm. They showed up, man. They sit down, they plant roots, they start their own businesses.
They do, yeah. And so I think people get the idea that they're from Syria, that's a war-torn country, they're all terrorists. And obviously, that's not true.
That's why they're leaving.
Isn't.
That's why they're leaving.
Yeah. Right.
To get away from those people.
Exactly. And it's hard because as an American, I know that my government has started some of these wars, or my government is behind some of these things. And not that they necessarily do it intentionally, but now we have these consequences, unintended consequences, that we have to deal with. And we have people that are, displaced internally or externally. This year, we continually, each year now, have the biggest number of refugees in the world. Record numbers. Every year it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And that should be alarming to everyone. There shouldn't be anyone sitting there thinking, oh, well, this number is fine. Everything is okay. There are people being displaced in all corners of the world. It is not just one place. It's not just the Middle East.
Wait till global warming kicks in, and there's until it really kicks in. And
right, I'm on Monday I start my environmental security class, and I'm so interested to see what that's going to look like and what I'm going to learn there, because that's exactly what you're talking about. I work in conflict resolution, and the biggest driver of conflict these days is coming up in the next decade is climate change.
Yeah.
Food insecurity, the war over water.
Is the science in on that yet?
Yes, it is.
I don't know.
Trump told me it's not.
No. Too funny.
Listen, you said something about being safe in America, or you want to have a safe place to go.
Yeah.
Do you, do you feel more unsafe? Abroad and traveling, or at home?
Where do you feel more unsafe?
Yeah, where do you feel more comfortable? Traveling abroad or at home?
I think the perspective that I've always carried is that if it can happen at home, it can happen abroad. I I've been traveling all of my 20s.
There's mass shootings in Korea.
Right. I mean, there's not going to be mass shootings in Korea, but like I have definitely had my fair share of incidents in Korea as well. Like Korea's not perfect. There's nowhere is perfect.
Right.
But
Absolutely.
like what it comes down to is your mindset. And if you go out and think like the world is unsafe, you're going to stick to where you are, and there's a very good chance if you're from America you might be caught in a mass shooting, or you might even as simple as like a car crash or pedestrian accident. Like these are all things that can happen anywhere. It doesn't matter where you are. So for me, I would much rather be out and traveling and testing my limits and experiencing new things than I would be sitting at home hoping that like I don't get run over by a car tomorrow.
Yeah. Since you've been traveling, has there ever been a very dangerous situation that you've been in? When you talked about Thailand, it popped in my head. When me and Nate were there, we met a German guy who. Do you remember that? Listen, he was in a cab, and the cab driver was trying to sell him women, and the guy said, "I'm not." Again, this guy was learning most of his English and his slang from movies. So he kept saying, "Man, I don't want your bitches. I don't want your bitches." And he thought this is just a name to call women or whatever. It was like a problem with language, obviously. It's like, "I don't want your bitches. Let me out." And the hotel we were staying at was on both sides of the road. Mm-hmm. So the cab driver let him out, and he walked to the wrong side. And he's like, "Oh, my hotel's on the other side." So he walked back, and he walked back across the road. He's like, "Sorry, man, I got to get my money." And the cab driver thought he was trying to ditch, like not pay for it.
Yeah.
He said he went into the hotel. He came back out. There were guys waiting for him. So he's telling us a story. We're all sitting down, our hands are under the table. And he's like, "Man, then they grabbed me and everything happened so fast." He goes, "But I looked over." And he's a pro baseball player in Germany. He goes, "And one guy grabbed my hand and pinned it down on the car. And the other guy came in with an axe and tried to chop his hand off." And we went, "Come on, are you kidding?" He goes, "Man, I just moved it out of the way and it hit the heel of his palm." And we went, "Come on." And he showed us, man, he had a gash.
Gross gash.
They tried to cut his hand off.
Oh my God.
For dodging. How much could
an honest mistake, a drunken mistake, whatever.
Yeah.
you could drive
I
around
think he was
Samui.
drunk that night too.
You could drive around Samui 400 times in a night and it'd cost you $6.
Yeah.
It was so crazy. Just to think about how a fully grown, he was a huge dude, like could totally handle
big,
himself.
strong guy.
Big strong guy. And thinking how I would handle myself in a dangerous situation. I wonder if I was female, how much more dangerous it would feel, or how much more cautious you have to be. Do you take special precautions, or and back to my original question as well, what's the most dangerous situation that you've been in, and how did you handle it?
I think as women, we do tend to take more precautions in general. And like, I know the feminist in me wants to say like, "Oh no, like everyone is a target," which everyone is a target.
Absolutely.
100%. But like, for sure, like women definitely have to take more precaution. And that's not just traveling. That's literally everyday life.
Yeah.
Like that is me walking my dog at night in Washington, D.C. on Capitol Hill.
Yeah.
That's, me taking the bus late at night, or even in broad daylight these days. That's me rejecting a guy at a bar and thinking like maybe he's going to murder me later.
Yeah.
So it's not always just traveling, but I think when you travel, especially as a solo female traveler, which is my preference, I think you just take the precautions that you can, and you kind of, for me, I trust my gut a lot. Like, there was a situation in Thailand. It was not even dangerous, but it could have been, And so I got off the night bus, and I'm in the middle of nowhere, like rural. We barely have street lights.
I hate those.
Right, and so I'm like, okay, I gotta walk back to my house. No big deal. I've got my backpack on. I'm just walking down the highway because I'm literally like they drop you off at the highway and you just like get off on the side of the road and like you're supposed to go, but the route that I was going to take was pitch black. So I was like, I have to go on main roads. Yeah. So I'm walking down the highway, like no big deal. And all of a sudden, like these dogs come and they're like following me and barking at me, and there's a pack of like 5 of them. And I'm like, I love dogs, but like, oh God, like what if they eat me? Like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do. So I'm walking, and I guess, a guy on a motorbike saw me, like these dogs like following after me. And he stopped and he's like, come on. And like, I had my map pulled up. Yeah. So I just kind of pointed to where I wanted to go on the map. Like, it's just right up the highway, where I could turn off and get to my house. So he's like, okay. He's like this old man. He's a fisherman. He's got his, like, dead fish in his net, just hanging off the side. And I was like, all right, well, at least it's a motorbike. Like, in my gut instinct was like, okay, this guy has stopped. I didn't flag him down. He stopped. He clearly wants to help me. We don't speak the same language, but I'm on a motorbike. At the end of the day, if he just tries to kidnap me or we keep going, I just, like, roll out and hope for the best, Like, I got travel insurance. It'll be fine.
Better than getting...
Right, exactly. But everything worked out great, and he dropped me off where I was supposed to be, and I said, thank you. And he was like, yeah, good, go. And, like, it worked out great, and I think that's the thing is you really have to trust your instinct, and not everyone has great instinct, and I think it comes with experience, too. Like,
sure.
Thailand is like, I'm in my late 20s, and I started traveling in my early 20s.
You can get that set as I get older again. Not still pretty green, I think, but as you, who are you laughing at?
I'm just listening and thinking of all my experiences and how many places I've been in. I think you're 100% right, man.
But you get that. I think what I'm getting better at is trusting just being able to judge. Being able to judge people. When you're around someone, man, sometimes you get that an uneasy feeling or like, there's something not right about this person. Probably shouldn't trust them. And I'm getting better at recognizing and listening to that.
I've been in so many of those crazy situations, especially North Africa and Sub-Saharan Africa and all over Asia and South America. And it is. You got to trust your gut. And I think of how many times really crazy stuff could have happened and it didn't, just because you just go the way you feel you're supposed to go, or do what you're. There is no right or wrong. Nobody can tell you. We were up in Niger right after the Civil War ended, and it had been closed for like 12 years to outsiders. There was nobody there to guide you or tell you or translate for you. You just had to do what you thought was best, and that's why we went there, for an adventure. And you just got to trust your gut, man. I fully believe that.
And I think, like, that's how you get some of your best stories. Like, I have great travel stories just because, like,
Throw caution to the wind.
Like, shit happens. But that's the best part of traveling. And I was actually, it reminds me of, I was just in Bangkok before I flew out, and I was visiting a friend, and she had a friend visiting from America she just got her passport. She's never been on a plane. She's never been anywhere, and, like, poor thing is deathly ill. Like, she's got the worst, like, traveler's diarrhea, and she's devastated. She's miserable. Like, she's like, I'm never traveling
Mongolian
again.
Sauce, man.
I know, and I'm just like, girl, like, we've all been there, first of all. I was like, I had a bout with a parasite in the jungle, just a few weeks ago. And like, it passes. You get through it. It's no big deal. I've been sick way worse than this. You're going to get through it, and you're going to be just fine, and you're going to have all these great stories because of it. Like, things happen. And
when I got to Ghana, I was terrified of malaria, and I'd got poked like a pincushion with every other inoculation possible before I went. Malaria, there isn't. So I was on Lariam or chloroquine or something. And anyways, and all the Peace Corps guys were there, and they're like, dude, sell your anti-malarials to other guys because they're really expensive. Yeah. And just wait until you get malaria, and then just take the pills. They're like 5 cents each. And then, sure enough, now a 5-time vet of malaria, I would say the same thing. Screw anti-malarials. Unless you're going one week before your wedding, fine, take them. But otherwise, I would say forget it, man. They're not worth it. But yeah, the experience and the more you do it, the more you trust yourself, and you build up that instinct and good judgment.
Man, traveling outside of your hometown, diarrhea should just be assumed.
Right? I have a Korean friend who just spent a year in America, and she came back and she's like, oh, I've been feeling so sick, like my stomach's terrible. And I'm like, girl, that's because you're not used to all this spicy food again. It's gonna be fine.
Although it hasn't been fine for the last 15 years, but
they said the first 4 years we were pouring soft serve for
right?
4 years.
And then it's such a milestone when you get to solid again, You're like, wow, I've really made it. Like,
well, Bri said when he came back, and he's like, man, my gas in Canada is just absolutely toxic. And I was back there. It wasn't 2 days, and all of a sudden you're back to very hard bowels again. And oh my God, I could knock out a soccer stadium with a fart. And like if my sister-in-law or my brothers, if they're listening, they'll go, but I don't have gas like that in Korea, man. It's absolutely, I just think the food must be absolutely toxic to do that to me.
No, but I wasn't even
kill a
eating.
stadium.
It's just the change in diet. You're going
Oh
from
my
kimchi,
God.
which you would assume would produce a worse
No
smell.
way, no way.
Good Lord.
You have to eat kimchi 3 times a day, or else you're not healthy. Don't you know that?
Well, I don't know, but whatever I was eating at home was not healthy.
There's that new study that they say like kimchi is the superfood for making hair grow.
Bullshit.
Someone just asked me if I
Bullshit.
saw that for helping bald people.
Yeah.
Someone
that's
just
the
told me,
new
but I haven't
study.
seen it yet. But we'll link it to the podcast later.
Yeah.
Any of you guys going bald at 26? Not much time left here.
No, I got one more. Looking at your Instagram, knowing you from helping out with We Hope, talking with you now, we see you're extremely positive in all aspects of life. You're very optimistic. Traveling, being abroad can be strenuous and challenging, and working in Korea. I mean, you were Epic program, eh? Not so much the Hagwon grind, but work, school, everything can get challenging. What's your secret to staying so positive, so optimistic?
Well, I think first of all,
Kimchi.
Right, 3 times a day makes
So
you
good.
healthy.
Yeah.
Everything's perfect. You'll have a full head of hair as well. But I mean, shout out to my parents. Like, my parents are fantastic. They're wonderful. They raised me and my brother in such a great way. Like, my parents are not big travelers, but they are huge supporters of whatever I've done. And, I think that helps so much, is coming from a positive environment where my parents are like, of course you can do it. They never told me, no, you can't. They were like, if you want to do it, you go for it. It's going to be great. My parents came here to Korea after my first year, and they were like, okay, we get it. We know why you want to stay here. We know why you love it. Like, we've met your friends. We know your relationships here are fantastic. The life that you've built here is wonderful. So they've been so supportive. They supported me coming back for a visit. They were so excited to say hi to everyone.
Yeah.
So I think it really starts at childhood, and just being like, or surrounded by people who maintain a positive attitude. And my parents are very positive. But I think it's also just, it's the idea that, so what? Something bad happens, so what? It's not the end of the world. Unless you're like lying in a casket, like, life goes on.
Yeah.
And there's always somebody worse off.
Right.
No matter what happens, even the worst thing you can think of, there's people that are always worse off. That's what I've learned. I can't complain. There's so many people worse off.
But the secret to a miserable, terrible life is comparing up. And you know what?
Yeah.
You can compare up as much as you want, and the pinnacle for you might be like a Bill Gates. Like, he's got $1 billion. You can do it. Listen, you keep looking up. There's always someone better. Well, I mean, you don't want to look down and be like, "Oh, I'm better than you." But like you said, comparing down or sideways, or just maybe appreciation for what you have.
It really is. It's the appreciation for like the blessings, and I know that I'm really lucky to have been able to travel so much, and I know that like
absolutely.
the same luxuries have not been afforded to all of my friends in the States.
Yeah.
But like you don't hold that over people. Everyone has a means to their end, and that's just the way it is. And I think like if anyone's out there listening and they're trying to move abroad, like, just don't come here and expect it's going to be anything. Like, don't have any expectations. Just come and see how it goes. And
that's the hardest part, though, right?
Yeah, right. Because
no preconceived notions, no expectations, but
right. I mean, it worked in my advantage. I really knew nothing about Korea. I knew nothing about K-pop.
Me too,
I showed up and I was just like, you know what? This country wants me. Like, I have a job. I'm going to see how it goes. And like within 10 minutes, I was having the time of my life. Like, I got off the plane and I was like, I had been to Busan and I was like hanging out with friends and in a lot of ways, Korea forces you to make friends because you're all in a similar situation.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think like, I miss that. I miss that a lot. Like,
well, everyone's enduring that. You could say it's almost like not. Obviously, it's a more extreme example, but guys who go to war together.
Yeah.
They're
It's
enduring that struggle together.
Yeah.
And you're here going, damn it, there's no Costco. Where's my cheese? Oh,
Yeah.
I really miss this. And it's something everyone can.
I think that's what traveling does, right? It forces
does.
you out of your comfort zone, and certain regions a little bit more or a little bit less, but you're forced to do things that you're not. I mean, look at our friends. Our friends are Jeff, who's 60, and all the way down to Willie, who was 23 or something when he was here. I mean, even when you came, you were young. So that's, I mean, for me in Canada, my friends don't, range from 20 to 60.
Right.
And just being out of my comfort zone, and, I would hang out with the same kind of, like-minded hockey player, whatever kind of guys at home. And here I socialize with everybody and anybody because now I appreciate that, and I kind of crave that, to meet someone different and not like me, because they have different things to talk about and to learn from.
Right.
So,
and I mean, honestly, traveling has been the biggest network builder for me. Like,
sure.
Anytime I go somewhere, I stay in a hostel, I meet people, and you meet people from all different walks of life doing
and
all kinds
everyone's
of things.
cool.
Right, like
Everyone's
digital
cool.
nomads are doing this thing or that thing. I met a guy in London at a hostel, and then we met up again in Paris, and he runs Make School, which is like changing the face of how people learn how to code. It's become like its own kind of university. So like you make connections like that, and they become your lifelong friends, and you're commiserating, but you're also, building your network. And
I like, from traveling, you realize that your life isn't destined to be a 9-to-5 desk job. You see,
Yes.
you go abroad and you're like, whoa, I can do that. Oh, you mean I don't have to wake up? But, I don't need a Sunday night blues where you're like, oh, I gotta go to work. Oh, I gotta endure.
You can work 2 to 9.
that is it. That is 100% it, though.
Yeah.
Like, I went in we have to go in and have a career conversation with the director of our program. And he's like, well, these are the things you're interested in, so you should look at think tanks. And I was like, look, the idea of working in office makes me want to die.
Yeah.
So I think we need to start thinking outside of the box as to where I'm going to fit.
Yeah.
And he was like, oh my God, what are you doing here? But it's recognizing, whether that's the life you want to live or not. For me, like, I'm interested in so many different things, and I don't want to, if I had to wear a suit every day, I would be miserable.
Yeah.
Like, I want to express myself through my clothing. I want to, be out and about. I want to make human connections. And so when you know what you want, you have to like go out and get it.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's, I like more living here has taught me that everything's it's not you're born into this life and you should, I don't know what I'm trying to say here, like anything's possible.
You don't get stuck.
Living here.
Yeah.
I feel there's no
Get out of the well.
There's
Yeah.
zero. Yeah, but
Right.
out of the well. Hey, well done.
All you have to do is jump up and you're good.
That's a next tattoo. Get out of the well. Yeah.
Okay, a couple minutes here, Shark.
I climbed out.
I want to know, what did you might think you missed something the most while you were away, but now that you're back, what did you miss the most, or what do you realize you missed the
I
most?
miss my friendships. I miss the relationships that I built here, not just with foreigners, but with Koreans. A lot of my friends that I came back to see are Koreans who make this is their life, and they were part of my everyday, and it's harder and harder to see them, but technology is incredible. We FaceTime. Sure. It's great. I've kept in touch. So just having like a solid group of like, especially girls, like a girl group where like we can go out and we're not like worried about like getting married or anything. We're just like having fun and living our best life. I miss that. And it's so hard to make friends as an adult.
Yeah.
Korea helps so much.
Yeah. No. Okay.
And the last one, food. I know you're a bit of a foodie there, and you liked a lot of different stuff. What have you indulged in coming back this time? What would you recommend to some of the listeners out there?
I had a list, and I checked off everything on my list. I sent it to my best friend, my best Korean friend, Hyunju. I sent her a list, and I was like, girl, these are all the things I want to eat while I'm here. First thing we checked off was shabu shabu. 100%, like, hot pot is nothing to shabu shabu.
Yeah.
Like, oh my God, it's like 5 meals in one.
Yeah.
You need to have it. Same with dakgalbi.
Yeah.
Like, there's a particular place in Hwabongdong that's like the best dakgalbi place, I swear. It's a chain, but the best location is Hwabong. I couldn't even tell you what the name is, but I know it's like the guy with the big head and the little body.
Yeah, okay.
The logo. That's my place. That's my place. And like, that's also like 3 meals in one. But honestly, like, I miss Korean food so much.
I like those leveled meals, eh?
I do, right? You've got like an appetizer kind of, and then you start to eat a little bit, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh, bokkeumbap 주세요, and then like all of a sudden you've got like 5 different meals.
I feel like it's 3 entrees, not appetizer.
It's just so good, and like, of course, like barbecue, you miss barbecue and like the good barbecue, and just like food here is such like a friend experience.
Yeah.
It's a communal table and like the
Sociable,
banchan. Yeah, it really is. And it's not that it isn't in America, it's just different.
Yeah.
And
Because you're not sharing your saliva with everybody.
but I love it. I love that aspect of it, Like, oh, you're sick now, I'll be sick next week. But I mean, some of my closest friends in Washington, D.C. are expats from Korea.
Yeah.
Like they lived in Korea with me and then moved to Washington D.C.
Sharing soup in the office.
We've got our little tight knit group, and we're like, let's do a noraebang night and let's get some soju, and so the relationships that you make here really do last a lifetime.
Absolutely.
Last one before we go. To anybody who might be listening and thinking about coming over, how is the EPIC program for you? I know you came over in that, and you seem to get along well with it and fit in well. What would you give advice, or how would you advise someone to go with the EPIC program? How it worked for you? Or
I think what's great about EPIC is that if you have no teaching experience or you've never been a teacher before, they give you some training. Like, you show up for a Hagwon and they're like, okay, well, you're teaching this class tomorrow. Right? Yeah. You know? I mean, not that I didn't have to teach right away when I showed up with EPIC, because I taught in middle and high school, which sadly no longer exists in Ulsan as of this year. Only elementary school. In almost all of Korea these days, they're scaling back. So I will say that the program's getting more competitive in terms of who they're hiring, but that shouldn't stop anyone from coming. Like, the EPIC program's great. You definitely end up in places where you get a chance to meet other people and kind of connect with them before you even end up in your city. Yeah. So I think that kind of helps build your social network right away. But, you know, there are some benefits to being in Hagwon too. Like, some are better than others. Do your research. If you do decide to go the Hagwon route, just make sure you're talking to
the previous
teachers and reading reviews and making sure that you understand what you're walking into. And don't get taken advantage of salary-wise if you're a Hagwon, because that's what I've learned recently, that what a lot of Hagwon owners do is they're getting new people to Korea and like paying them way less.
Or the same as 2007.
Right, you know, like, it's really, really hard. And so then from there, it's hard for teachers who have been here for a while to get raises and, you know, to find companies that are willing to pay them the salary that you definitely deserve. So know your worth. Yeah. Because Hagwon is hard work. EPIC is hard work. I mean, your lesson planning, it's way harder than JET. Yeah. Boo JET, like...
That's
JET, the Japan program. Like, you're like a teacher's aide in JET. Like, I know friends who went to JET, and it's way more competitive than Korea. But like, in Korea, I was writing lesson plans. JET teachers had never done that. They just like repeat after me, you know. So definitely do your research about what program is going to work best for you. But like, don't hesitate, just do it. Like, I mean, it's 1 year of your life, if anything. It's not that bad. My mom said before I left, she's like, you can always come back, whatever. Like, it's a contract, but it's not that serious. Like, if you're miserable, come back. But I had the time of my life to stay for 3 years. So
fantastic.
And back again.
Yeah, my friends are all like, when's the next trip? When are you coming back? And I was like, guys, you know.
Is it within 10-year plan? Would you ever consider coming back here to work as a teacher, or
not as a teacher, but like maybe like at university, like if I were teaching in international relations or something, like I would do an Ulsan uni job. I think I would.
Cool.
Because my friends are here, but. I don't know. Well, we're just gonna have to wait and see what happens.
Play it by ear.
Exactly.
Awesome. Well, anyways, listen. Thank you so much for taking time out of your
tight schedule.
Your tight schedule.
Heading to Seoul right now and out tomorrow. So
we managed
really appreciate it
to overlap Nate's coming back and your
24-hour overlap.
I'm so glad that it worked out. Like, I was really hoping to reconnect with you guys. So.
Awesome.
Well, next time we'll have to go for a drink.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming. All right, guys. We'll see you next time. Hope you enjoyed. Goodbye.